Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and this is our show for the week of Schmurz Day, March 29th, 2021. On the show today, news, listener questions, and in our main segment, Jim gives us part 4 of 5 on the history of the Tower of Terror attraction at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Let's get started by bringing in the man who says that push, spelled backwards, means pull. It's Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
So the whole push-pull thing, isn't it kind of the equivalent of the buttered toast scenario, to the effect of you approach a door and if you push it, it's going to be a pull, in much the same way that whether or not your toast falls butter side up depends on the value of the carpet you're standing on?
It's exactly it's the way my life is. I was at MoMA this last weekend with Laurel, and we were going through the Calder exhibit of mobiles, and the door to exit the exhibit was a pull door, which is odd because in the United States, normally all exit doors should be pushed. So I tried pushing on the door, and that didn't work. And the woman behind me said, "It's a pull door." And I said, "Oh, because the next thing I was going to try is lifting from the bottom." And she actually snorted laughter.
That's great. That's great.
Thank you. Yeah. All right, Jim, let's do a quick shout out to subscribers over at disneydish.bandcamp.com. Thanks to new subscribers Joe TV, A. Byrne, My Wildcats 02, Clint, C. Nikolov, and Nathan F. And longtime subscribers Alex Jessup, Chad R11, Patrick W., Corey B., and longtime friend of me in the show, Kristen Helmstetter. Jim, these are the folks who bought up all of the rooms at Disney's All-Star Movies Resort last week so the rest of us could get upgraded to the Grand Floridian.
Okay.
Did you hear about this?
No, seriously?
Actually happened, yeah. So the movies was overbooked, and so Disney started moving people to the Grand Floridian so they could sell more movies rooms because the Grand Floridian capacity was relatively low. So the reason why we know this is we got an email over at Touring Plans from someone who read one of our Priceline deal emails, and so they bought a room on Priceline for like $100 a night at movies, and then got upgraded to the Grand Flow, and they were like, "This is the best discount anyone could ever get." Right? Like, I'm done. I'm never trying for another discount again because nothing will top this. So yeah,
they move people from the movies to Grand Flow.
Well, so once you've paid for the movies, right, you can't sell anymore. So the way to make more capacity at the value resorts, which is what people are buying, right, is to move them to other resorts. So that tells me then that Caribbean Beach and Coronado were also full, or Disney wanted to sell the moderates. So basically, they're taking they're making capacity at the values by moving those people to the deluxes.
You got to wonder how the staff at the Grand Floridian felt about every other guest walking through the door singing the theme song to the Jeffersons.
Moving on up.
There we go. Yes, you're very funny. Get to your room. All right, jeez.
We made it, Wheezy. We made it.
There we go. Yeah.
The next time I go to the Grand Flow, I'm going to walk in and say that.
There we go.
I'm going to get T-shirts made.
Okay, there we go.
All right.
My work is done here, so.
All right, Jim, let's do the news. Folks, the Disney Dish News is brought to you by Storybook Destinations, trusted travel partner of the Disney Dish podcast. For a worry-free travel experience every time, book online at StorybookDestinations.com. Jim, big news just coming out of California, reported by our friend Brady McDonald over at the Orange County Register. When Disneyland reopens, there will be no indoor queues, no lines indoors. And a virtual queuing system is encouraged by the state. So, Jim, first of all, Space Mountain in Disneyland without an indoor queue. Obviously, you put people in Tomorrowland, but the question then is, how many people can you fit in Tomorrowland? And my point here is that Disneyland is already a lot of outdoor queues. It's not like they've got additional space. So what's going to happen here, Jim?
I've been hearing from folks in the Team Disney Anaheim building about cast members called back and training and this sort of thing. They've actually been doing a lot of, if we did strictly an outdoor queue for this and we came in from the unload side as about the offload, could we do that? So this has been kind of a fluid thing, also based on what's the definitive guidance coming out of Newsom's office? Because it was changing from day to day.
This just came out today.
Well, this is what I'm talking about. Yeah. And so to finally settle on this point where it's no indoor queues, it's like, oh.
Well, the thing that's challenging about Disneyland, again, besides the fact that there's queues are already outdoors because of the great California weather, is they don't have an extensive amount of backstage space like Walt Disney World does to extend those queues. Like I was in Galaxy's Edge, back in December when they were using the extended queues, and those were pushing out towards South Orlando, I think. I mean, there's extensive backstage area around Hollywood Studios. Disneyland doesn't really have that.
No. I was hearing, for example, the tests that were being done for Big Thunder. The word literally came down as like, what are they saying? Is it do you stick with the 6 foot queue, or do we go into the 3 foot queue?
No, it's 6 foot. It starting off at 6 feet, plexiglass. So everything else that we see in Florida happens in California. Plexiglass dividers between occupants in ride vehicles where it's feasible. No mixing of different groups in the same row of a vehicle. So, like on Small World, every group gets their own row and there's no sharing of rows. Same thing in California. So that stuff is going to continue.
Yeah.
The thing that you got to feel for Disneyland about is this. So they're going to open at the end of April with these rules in place. Most of us are going to be vaccinated by June. So there's going to be the guy with the rechargeable drill installing the plexiglass, and they're going to buy extra battery packs for him to uninstall them 2 months later. So you're just going to start at one end, finish up, and then start at the other end and take them down. That's my hope anyway.
That's the thing that's absolutely maddening for the folks in Anaheim.
But they got to do it.
No. I mean, they want to open. They want these cast members to come back to work. But now you allow us to do this, and we have to...
Yeah. We could have been up and running for 6 months, with these exact same things that were in place in Florida. Yeah. I know, it's frustrating. I don't think this was Governor Newsom's shining moment for this particular decision. Anyway. Other interesting things back in World, the Magic Kingdom is testing facial recognition for entry. So for the last few months, since the parks reopened, it's really just been tap your Magic Band and go. And there's no biometrics, there's no photograph for them to compare to, nothing really going on. So Disney's now testing facial recognition. I'm actually going to go try this on Saturday in the park and see what it's like. I'll let you know.
All right.
But here's the thing. Like, there's a lot of people who are concerned that Disney's doing facial recognition. And let me just say, and I think, Jim, you and I have talked about this, Disney's been doing facial recognition since shortly after 9/11.
Oh, yes.
So 20 years.
Yeah.
And my understanding is, we've talked about this on the show, they have one of the most effective facial recognition systems in the entire United States, if not the world. Like, from what I'm told, it's the envy of Las Vegas, which has some fairly good facial recognition software as well.
Absolutely.
Right. So they've been doing it. This is just attaching it to your admission, which I get.
Yeah.
And I think part of the problem there is there's sharing of Magic Bands happening for people with annual passes, and Disney wants to prevent that.
It was probably last year, maybe as far out as 18 months out. Do you remember coming across that patent from Disney to the effect of it was technology within an attraction that tracked your eyes, as in, what are you looking at?
Yes. It was I think it was a mood or an occupant interest sensing thing. Yeah.
That's it exactly.
Oh, you think combining the two things. Oh, see, I didn't put the chocolate and the peanut butter together, Jim, but you have.
If they're now starting to walk this out.
Yeah. What else do you do with it?
There we go. So.
Look at you being all clever.
Every so often.
We're going to talk about Imagineering again in a second. But first, we're getting related to Walt Disney World. Park hours for April were extended, and park hours for June have been released. Thanks to our friends over at WDW Magic for keeping track of this. So, Jim, I'm also starting to hear friends who work in food and bev and other cast members getting calls back to work. At this point, Florida's opening up vaccines to everyone April 4th. I would be surprised at this point if late summer wasn't sort of normal-ish. And the reason I'm saying that is summer is when Halloween starts in Walt Disney World. And so we're getting lots of questions around, is Disney going to have a not-so-scary Halloween party and a Christmas party? At this point, given the progress we've made on the vaccine and things like that, I would put the odds of there being some kind of Halloween party at 75% and some sort of Christmas party at like 90%. So at this point, I think they are more likely than not. I'm thinking Disney's going to wait until summer, June, July. And I still think July is the date to announce that tickets go on sale for these. And of course, some of the experiences will be modified. But I would be very surprised now if Disney's not itching just to do these things again.
Oh, no doubt. But what's concerning Disney is the news coming out of Germany, the resurgence there. You have to understand when we're talking about Walt Disney World, normal means international travel. I know what you're talking about here is specifically about the parks. And yes, we're not talking about necessarily all of the resorts on property or that sort of thing. But for Disney, it's just one of the things, that our normal is like...
includes UK visitors, right?
That's it exactly. We love those guys who stay for 2 weeks and spend all of that money. And it's just sort of like, yes, we're very happy to have our stateside customers back, but it's like, oh, you people in the UK, get on some planes, please.
Yeah, and I think we'll see that too, because the UK is on track to have everyone vaccinated as well. Again, once we achieve a certain level of vaccination in the United States, you'll see the CDC come out and say, look, we've effectively achieved herd immunity. And I think the vaccines have shown decent efficacy against most of the variants. Like everything I've seen from the vaccine say, people who have been vaccinated, at least in the trials, none of them died. And I think none of them were hospitalized. So it ends up being like the flu. Yeah. And that's about as good as we can get, right? That seems to be okay. So I would say that, again, by late summer, I would expect to see a relaxing of travel restrictions as well.
That's the wooden table. I'm knocking wood. All right, what Len said, we're knocking wood.
I think so. Yeah. Right. Well, you saw how the cruise line is now pushing back, saying because the CDC has a no sail order in place for U.S. ports through November 1st, and the CDC is like, dude, we're gonna be vaccinated well before November 1st. What's going on here? And there's some merit to that position, right?
But we've talked about on the show how they were going to do the test cruises with them tied up to shore.
But they still have to, right? According to CDC guidelines, they still have to do
exactly. And it's just one of these things where it's like, oh, come on. When are you going to drop the roadblock so we can at least start to move toward getting back to in business?
Again, think of like supply chain stuff for cruises. You can't just go out tomorrow and order 17 tons of bananas, right? I mean, it takes a logistics supply chain to get that amount of food to Port Canaveral, right? I mean, it's this extended ballet of resources, right?
Absolutely.
And they need time to do that. Again, we talked about this last week. This is why Disneyland's not going to open with extensive food operations, because it takes a while to order 10,000 pounds of hamburgers. Sure. So. And the cruise line, too, especially because they have a very specific schedule. If those bananas aren't in Port Canaveral by 5 p.m. on the date of departure, those bananas are worthless, right? Yeah. No, the ship's not turning around to come back for fruit. No. As I say with my Carmen Miranda headset, standing on the beach in Nassau, running 15 minutes late from my spot on the Fantasy. Come back. You know what? Never mind. Don't. It's all good.
Okay.
All right, Jim, a quick question for you, and this is a broad-based question. What's going on over at Walt Disney Imagineering? And I ask this because Bob Weiss, president of Walt Disney Imagineering, recently updated his LinkedIn profile to be not only president of Walt Disney Imagineering, but president of Creative and New Experience Development.
Okay, remember how Disney Consumer Products became Disney Products Experiences what is the batting order? It's Disney
Parks, Resorts, Experiences,
and Products. Yes. So this has been a year where a lot of people were at home and found ways to entertain themselves. For the folks in Imagineering who have predominantly worked in the steel and concrete business, you build ride shows and attractions. The fact that, for a year they sat twiddling their thumbs and they had their audience at home. And for Imagineering, I remember hearing about a report where they tabulated the number of YouTube videos of people who had recreated attractions at home.
Oh, yeah.
And it was in the
millions of views.
Yeah, in the thousands with millions of views. And it's just, it's one of these things where it's like, okay, we need to broaden our portfolio because people at home, look what they did by themselves. And imagine if we had our equivalent of Disney Plus for the parks ready to roll.
Right.
Imagineering stood and watched how Disney Plus was in the right place at the right time and had the right amount of product.
And what if Imagineering could have done the same thing?
There we go.
So that explains this survey that Disney flooded people with last week. And the question was, how interested are you in each of the following virtual experiences? And Jim, honest to God, I had to look these up. So the first one was Boda Borg, BODABORG, which I thought was what happens when IKEA starts making designer drugs for rave festivals. Apparently I was wrong on that one, but whatever. Okay. Who knew? Who knew? Team Lab Borderless, which is a virtual quest thing. Camp, which I couldn't figure out what that was. Meow Wolf, which is immersive art. And Team Borderless also is art installations. So Team Borderless and Meow Wolf are immersive art. Pokemon Go was the other one, which is sort of, virtual quest. And then Bodeborg. So why the interest in these? Is this what it is? It's like we could give people things to do virtually?
Well, yeah. I mean, for example, the real giveaway is Pokemon Go. I mean, the whole notion of what if during this time where we were stuck at home, but you could still walk out in your yard, what if there was the Disney equivalent of Pokemon Go, where you were chasing down
Goofymon Go.
There we go. Yeah. There we go. I mean, it's just, there's a number of folks at Imagineering who just felt like this was a wasted year. And coupled with the talent that got furloughed, let's not have this happen again.
Yeah. Contingency planning, number one. But number two, I think it gives them an idea of things that they could do. So you could do these things at home too, right? But you could also do them at the resorts.
You could.
Yeah.
You can go back as far as the 1970s. In fact, there was a series of projects that Disney called the Disney Centers that were really the earliest version of Disney Quest. People did lots of art, people wrote scripts, there was lots of concepts, and in the end it's like, and it's gonna cost this much, and it's like, when you get to the actually opening the wallet part, a lot of these ideas die. I mean, I'm glad they're doing the surveys. I'm hopeful that they get some good, solid info and get a direction. But it is encouraging to have Imagineering, just again, new experience development. Just let's hope and pray that some of these things actually move out of development into the real world.
And I, in referencing this, I go back to a comment that Disney Parks Experiences and Products CIO and my former coworker Talak Mandati said last year about developing augmented reality experiences. And this sort of links into that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. That makes sense. All right. So thanks to Bruce and Becky and Sam and Timothy and everyone else who sent in that survey. We got a bunch of them over in over the weekend all at once. So thank you all for sending those in. There's a couple of quick listener questions. One from Edie in Manchester. Hope this finds you as well as we can be in this time that I wish I'd copyrighted the word unprecedented.
Okay.
My family and I have rebooked our trip to Florida to June 2022. I was wondering if you and Jim have any idea whether the Guardians of the Galaxy roller coaster or the Tron coaster will be open by then. The announcement of Ratatouille in October this year, despite being more or less ready now, doesn't fill me with lots of confidence. So, Jim, June of 2022. I would bet money one of the two is open by then.
Yeah.
We should probably throw Harmonious in there too. So let's assume Edie said Harmonious in there too.
Yeah, I'm hearing Guardians is much further along than Disney really wants to admit. I mean, we've all been watching, the work on the canopy for Tron.
Yeah, but Guardians is happening indoors.
There you go. And the key to the Guardians is the ride footage. And
oh, right. And didn't what's his name? Gunn. What's his first name?
James Gunn.
James Gunn. He actually said on Twitter last week that he's basically been out of commission for the last year. Because somebody had asked him, like, hey, when are you going to do this other thing?
Yep.
And he's like, well, let me tell you what I've got on my plate before that. And he specifically mentioned shooting the ride footage for Guardians of the Galaxy, the ride.
He did.
In his tweet.
He did.
Yeah.
He also mentioned the Guardians holiday special. So that's...
that's going to be a parody of the Star Wars holiday
no,
special.
Absolutely.
I have not seen the script. I will, I'll bet a pint of my own blood on that one, right?
No. That just, can't wait. But yeah, it's nice to hear that even he's acknowledging, got to get this done. Just been regularly checking in with friends at Marvel, and it's like, okay, when does James go over to the set of Thor Love and Thunder and do this work? The problem is he's working on the Suicide Squad reboot.
Is Love and Thunder the names of Thor's biceps? Because if it's not, Jim, I have a marketing opportunity for Disney right now.
Wow. Okay. Again, that check goes to Mr. Testa.
Can you tell me how much caffeine I've had this morning before this?
But
all right.
It really is a horse race at this point.
So let me ask you this question then. Knowing what Disney knows about James Gunn's schedule, do they now emphasize or prioritize construction of Tron? Saying, like, okay, Guardians is largely out of our control. Or there's parts of it that are out of our control. Tron, not so much.
I just recently saw a wonderful interview that Angela Lansbury did for the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. And she was talking about working on Bedknobs and Broomsticks. And it was like, said, well, yeah, there was a script. But basically, you showed up each day and it's like, see the storyboard, see that panel. That's what we're shooting today. Angela, turn your head to the left. That's where the invisible pants dance by you. With this attraction, the thing has already entirely been storyboarded. So they've actually been doing prototype timing and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
The finished film is almost the afterthought, Len.
Oh, yeah.
This particular scene needs to be 13 seconds long, and
you and I need to do an entire show on the concept of pre-visualization in Marvel movies. Yeah. Like we really should do an entire show on previs, because that's where the movie's made.
It is
literally before the director is hired, before the actors know before the script is written. Previs has happened, and that's basically the story.
It's also how you budget the film.
Yeah, here are your scenes with effects. This is how much it's going to cost. Yeah.
So.
Also, ED closes with this. I'm from Manchester, and accordingly, here's how I describe my meal plan for a day: breakfast, tea, lunch. But at school, it would be dinner because you have a dinner lady, not a lunch lady, and then tea. Oh, so 2 teas, a breakfast, and a lunch. Totally makes sense to me.
Remember, the tea break, though, is 11s. So,
11s is, yes, 11s but that's mostly from Lord of the Rings.
There we go.
So, yeah. All right, here's a question from Andrew that required some historical research, which I did. So, hey, Jim and Len, my grandfather, John, was a high school football coach in Daytona Beach during the late 60s and early 70s. He got to go to the Magic Kingdom the year it opened. My grandfather tells the story that on one of his trips, he actually got stuck with all the other guests inside the Magic Kingdom. He says that on this day, the monorail was offline because of lightning, and there were whitecaps on the lagoon, so the ferries couldn't go. And the road that goes between the TTC and the Contemporary was flooded in the section of road that dips under the lagoon, so trams couldn't go either. I have no idea if you've heard the story, but he claims it's the only time it ever happened. So let me pause there and say, I actually looked it up to see to see if this happened. I checked the Orlando Sentinel archives in 1971 and 1972. I couldn't find anything definitive on that. However, we do know that substantial flooding did happen in Walt Disney World during 1971 and 1975. And for this, we have to thank the 2004 master's thesis at FSU by student William Hightower, who did a study of Disney World's effect on nature. And he says that on page 38 of his thesis, he mentions that the Army Corps of Engineers did a study in 1976 of the flood hazards for Reedy Creek Improvement District because they had experienced once in 100-year floods more often than they had thought since the resort opened. So here's my sense. The government generally doesn't send the Army out unless something actually happened, right? We all know Roswell was UFOs. So that's all I'm saying, Jim.
Okay.
And in this case, right, for the Army Corps of Engineers to do a study on flooding in Reedy Creek Improvement District means that the Reedy Creek Improvement District probably flooded sometime between 1971 and 1975. So I would say, Andrew, that your grandfather John's story is entirely plausible and probably did happen.
And Andrew and I actually are going to share some emails back and forth on this. And even the stuff in here that, like, for example, when he talks about Gates' grandfather knew that, the ferries weren't going because there were white caps out on Seven Seas.
Do you know what kind of wind it takes to do white caps on the Seven Seas Lagoon?
Well, also his grandfather tells a story about seeing the white caps. And it's like, today you can't stand inside of the Magic Kingdom and look out. Onto Seven Seas Lagoon.
Because of the berm and the elevations that have been done. Yeah, but back then you could.
No,
remember?
That's it exactly. There were a number of places where, particularly in early Adventureland when things hadn't quite grown up yet, and likewise parts of Tomorrowland, you could have looked out.
And we saw this in the old photos that people send us.
There we go.
Right, where it's basically cleared land between the Magic Kingdom and the Contemporary.
Yeah. So, again, a lot of the story checks out. The only other thing I want to add here is that during the particularly busy times of year, remember how when you came out of the parking lot, you'd be in a tram and it would be pulled by this oversized tractor?
Yep.
During particularly busy times of year, they would do something different. They would actually, because, the monorail had been overwhelmed, the ferries were overwhelmed, they would also run a tram from, and again, they only did this on a very limited basis, from the TTC over to the Magic Kingdom. They'd run it on, the Perimeter Road, Asian Way.
Oh, really? Wow.
What they found out, though, was that this tractor, in fact, they had to, at some point in the early 70s, swap out the tractor that pulled the trams because they found out the hard way that if the road under the land bridge, that water bridge between Seven Seas Lagoon and Bay Lake, if that was damp in any...
It's like trying to push a train uphill.
No, that's exactly. It couldn't make the grade. So on a day like this, where there's been a lightning strike, the monorail's down, and there's whitecaps, and this would have been their only option at that point. And, and it's like, it can't make the grade. It's the road's ways wet. So they're stuck there. What's interesting now is there's actually a contingency plan where, were this to happen, what they would do, in fact, I've seen the plan from the 70s, they would basically start pulling buses in behind Main Street USA, that area between Main Street and Tomorrowland, and direct guests out there. And then what they do is they would drive the bus counterclockwise around the park. So you'd come out... Oh,
going back behind the Grand Floridian. Down Floridian Way.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, at this point now, you can walk too, right?
You can walk to the Contemporary, but,
No, you can walk to you can take the Grand Floridian.
No. I stand corrected.
Back then, no, you couldn't. Yeah.
That's right. What a wonderful age we live in, Len. So.
Have you ever, speaking of the trams, have you ever noticed how big the tires are on the engines that drive
they have to
the trams? So those, I think the top speed of the tram can't be 15 miles an hour, but the amount of torque that those engines generate is probably enough to pull like 50 elephants. 50 unwilling elephants, I'd even say. Like 50 elephants who really don't want to go anywhere. Those things are specially built. So I can totally see that. Awesome. Cool. Thanks for the question, Andrew.
Yeah, no, Joe, that's right.
Oh, Andrew also writes in and says, also tying this into the Tower of Terror stories, my grandfather went to MGM Studios one night when it was raining, and he did the then new attraction Tower of Terror, not knowing what it was. He seriously thought it was a motion simulator. The next day, he came back to the park and heard screaming and realized Tower of Terror was a drop ride, and he said, "Holy cow, I did that." That is awesome.
Oh, that reminds me of those.
You know what? I'd rather not know.
All those stories about the families at Hong Kong Disneyland, where it's the parents and their one child and the two sets of grandparents who got online for Space Mountain, and because there was nothing outside that said, by the way, indoor roller coaster. It's like lots of fainted people, as the train pulled into, or the thing pulled back into the station. So.
How do you say, "What the hell is this" in Mandarin?
There we go.
That's pretty much what
go.
what you hear screaming out of Space Mountain on opening day. All right, great. All right, Jim. Going along with our earlier story about Walt Disney Imagineering and virtual quests, the U.S. Patent Office just published a Disney patent application titled "Artificial Intelligence-Based Role-Playing Experiences Based on User-Selected Scenarios." So the idea here is this, and so Disney will give you a choice for your role-playing experiences. And the four that they've got listed here, or the four things that they've got listed here for your quest. The first question is, select your objective. And one of them is infiltrate, and it shows a picture of a castle. The second one is question. Don't know what that means. And then there's three ellipses, three dots, implying that there are more options. But the last one is retrieve. And it's got a diamond, like a physical diamond, like you'd put in a ring on it. The next one is select your role, and the roles are wizard, warrior, then some ellipses, and ninja. And then the next one is select your means, like these are your abilities: stealth, force, some ellipses, flattery. The idea here is that this role-playing experience would suggest some scenarios for you, or generate random new ones, and then begin your quest. So this fits into what we were just talking about with WDI and virtual experiences, right?
Yeah. So at least they're piling up possible ways to push these stories forward. It's a question now of, okay, you got the means. So
now let's do it.
There we go.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Jim gives us part 4 of 5 on the history of Disney's Tower of Terror. We'll be right back.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana.
Introducing Meta Ray-Ban Display, the world's most advanced AI glasses. With a full color display built into the lens of the glasses, it's there when you need it and gone when you don't. Send and receive messages, translate or caption live conversations, collaborate with Meta AI, and more. Be one of the first to try Meta Ray-Ban Display. Visit meta.com/Meta Ray-Ban Display to book a demo and find your pair.
Adobe Acrobat Studio, so brand new. Show me all the things PDFs can do. Do your work with ease and speed. PDF Spaces is all you need. Do hours of research in an instant with key insights from an AI assistant. Pick a template with a click. Now your prezzo looks super slick. Close that deal? Yeah, you won. Do that, doing that, did that, done. Now you can do that with Acrobat. Now you can do that with the all-new Acrobat. It's time to do your best work with the all-new Adobe Acrobat Studio.
When we last left off, you and I talked about how when Eisner came through the door at Disney, he wanted to increase production at the studios, right? To go from like a couple of films a year to, what was it, like a dozen?
Yeah. When Michael came through the door, of the 8 studios that were operating in Hollywood at that time, Disney was dead last.
Solid 8th.
They were only doing 3 or 4 films a year, and to be honest, these films just were not connecting with audiences. And so the quickest way to ramp up to where Eisner wanted to be, which was 10 or 12 films for adults, those would be released through Touchstone, and then 3 or 4 films for the family audience, which basically would maintain Disney's output that they had prior to Eisner coming through the door. Yes, you could build the sound stages in Florida, but this is 1985, 84 to 85. The park went open until 89. In fact, the earliest they began shooting stuff there, I want to say, was late 88, and they did Splash 2, the TV movie, and Ernest Saves Christmas, were the first things that were produced on the lot there. But another way that's easy to ramp up your production is to persuade another pre-existing entity, someone else's production company, to come to Disney, to set up shop there, and to then begin releasing their films through the various brands that Disney owns. And remember, this was Touchstone, and Hollywood Pictures was eventually going to rise up, and of course you have Walt Disney Pictures. And Eisner, he knew Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks had actually started his very own production company, Brooks Films. The very first serious drama he released actually went out from Paramount, and this was during the years where Michael Eisner was actually president and CEO of Paramount. And the movie that went out, it was David Lynch's The Elephant Man.
That was a Mel Brooks film?
That was a Brooks film. But yeah, okay. They chased down David Lynch to do it. That was nominated for 8 Academy Awards, including Best Picture.
I vaguely remember this, yeah. Did it win?
Well, no, it got skunked. In fact, everyone remembers the amazing makeup that John Hurt wore in that film.
Yeah.
And the argument is like, why didn't that get a special award? I mean, it was amazing. And so the very next year, after The Elephant Man got skunked, was when the Academy Awards introduced an award for Best Makeup. Because it's like, okay, well, let's at least have something that acknowledges...
Oh, it separated out makeup from other effects.
There we go. So
it's kind of funny that the Academy acknowledges its mistake, not by giving a second award,
no,
but by saying, you know what, we're going to change the way we do things, which is just like an award.
There we go. Next time. We'll get you next time. Okay? So,
I didn't win, but I'm the reason why this other thing exists.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
So here's the thing. Eisner knows Mel from his dealings at Paramount. Problem is, they've already set up deals for films that will be released through Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and 20th Century Fox. In fact, if you remember David Cronenberg's The Fly from August of 86, again, a Brooks film.
That's the Gina Davis.
There we go. Jeff Goldblum. Yep.
Jeff Goldblum. Yeah. Oh, God, that was creepy.
Yeah, it was. But the whole idea is he didn't just want to do broad comedies. He wanted to sort of branch out. So Eisner's desperate for an angle to try to get Mel on the lot. And that arrives in the winter of 87, 88 when Disney shoots Big Business on the Burbank lot. Starred Lily Tomlin and Bette Midler as 2 sets of identical twins who get swapped at birth. But the primary set for this thing was the Plaza Hotel in New York City. And Disney tried to get permission to shoot at the actual Plaza Hotel, but the property was up for sale at the time. So in fact, it was Donald Trump who actually bought it in March of '88 for upwards of $400 million. So 8 years later, sold it, took a $90 million loss on it.
I will say, if you ever make it to the plaza, my favorite thing about it is the food hall at the basement. It's absolutely fabulous. It's the corner of 5th and Central Park South, right?
Yeah.
Totally fabulous.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyway, because the property was being prepped for sale, the owners were like, you can shoot the exterior, but you can't use the interior. So Disney's solution was to build at great expense a full-size replica of the lobby of the plaza, one of the sound stages of Disney. But once production is over in early '88, it's such a beautiful set. Eisner can't bring himself to tear it down. And also, there is the expense of having built the thing. But it does give Michael an excuse to call Mel. It asks him to come over for lunch at the Disney lot because Eisner's a problem. So after a fairly liquid lunch at the executive dining room at Disney, Michael walks Mel over to the soundstage where the big business lobby of the Plaza Hotel is still standing, and turns to Brooks and says, if you had this set available to work with, what could you do? And Mel looks at this big, beautiful set, and he immediately starts, you have the staff of a hotel, but you always have crazy guests coming through the revolving door.
In, right.
And it's like, and remember, this is also, the period where Disney has a huge success in Golden Girls, which it then spins off into Empty Nest. So it's very much in the TV space, and it's like, wow, we could have Mel Brooks' next sitcom. Absolutely, let's do this. So suddenly, mid-1988, Mel is on the lot. He has a production office set up for a show that will soon be called The Nut House, and that's N-U-T-T.
T-T.
Okay.
All right. A little too on the nose for a title, but okay, fair enough. It is television in the 80s.
Yeah, there's a lot about this show that's too on the nose, but we'll get to that. Right. Okay, so anyway, Michael's got his toehold, but he really wants to seal the deal with Mel. And so it's like, and the beauty of being at Disney is like, oh, you don't just have television and movies to work with. Have I told you about our theme parks? This is '88. We are a year out from Disney MGM Studios opening. And, the Imagineers are looking, and it's like, okay, if we're looking at this place from a film genre point of view, action and adventure, okay, we're covered. We got the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular. Sci-fi, we got Star Tours coming. All right, we're covered. Magic of Disney animation, don't have to worry about animation. But then there are genres that frankly, the park really doesn't touch on. Two of them being horror movies and mystery films.
Okay.
And I will acknowledge we got the Monster Sound Show, but that was very late in the game, and you'll notice isn't tied to any film that anybody actually knows. So they're looking at, okay, well, this is what we can deliver for the park opening in April of '89, but we will need more additional capacity. What about phase 2? And so for phase 2, they begin talking about a giant show building that will actually house 2 sit-down attractions, the Creature's Choice Awards, and Ghost Rider.
Oh.
Okay, now, if you want to learn about Creature's Choice Awards, which would have been hosted, by the way, by an audio animatronic version of Eddie Murphy, who was supposed to be made up like Frankenstein's monster.
Late 80s, okay.
As well as the horror movie host from television, Elvira.
Okay, again, late 80s. Wait, she's still active, isn't she?
Well, active is probably not the word, Len, but she's out there. She's still moving. She's moving and shaking. But if you want to learn more about this attraction, pick up a copy of Kevin Rafferty's Magic Journeys. It actually includes 4 and 5 pages that outline the attraction. They've got Kevin included all sorts of storyboards. You can see Eddie in his makeup. In fact, what I love about Kevin's book is he actually has a shot of Godzilla lumbering through the Epcot parking lot.
Wow.
Yes, he makes his way to Disney MGM Studios to pick up his Lifetime Achievement Award. So I just love that was in the make. Now, Ghost Rider, on the other hand, the gimmick of this is it was supposed to be a tribute to the film noirs of the 40s and the 50s, was mostly going to be done in Pepper's Ghost. I mean, the idea is you came into the theater, you sat down, when the lights came up, it was almost kind of a rear window situation. You were looking at a balcony of an apartment building in New York at twilight. There was a writer sitting at a typewriter. And over the course of the show, you realized he was a mystery writer who was being bothered by the characters of the book he was writing right then. So
that's not a bad premise for a show.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay. And so Pepper's Ghost Effect, for our listeners, it's the thing that you see in the ballroom scene of the Haunted Mansion as you're going by, right? So it's things that you can't see are projected, are backlit onto a plate of glass, and you're looking at the plate of glass.
Yeah, but again, they're going to have a live actor on stage who'd be interacting with these Pepper Ghost effect. And I've seen some concept art from it. It would have been really clever. But here's the thing. Eisner wasn't entirely convinced that these two shows, which would, again, housed in a very large show building, approximately where a rock and roller coaster now stands. Very expensive proposition.
Yeah.
You then factor in Eddie Murphy was kind of in a cold streak at the time. He'd just done Golden Child and Harlem Nights was looming. So there was a thinking, maybe we don't want to tie a multi-million-dollar attraction to that guy. Which meant Disney MGM doesn't have a horror-themed attraction, which is then when the Imagineers went to Mel and said, hey, Young Frankenstein, how would you feel if we did something with that in the parks?
You know that one of the gags has to be put the candle back.
Well, see, now that's what's intriguing about the design that I've seen. You would have started in Transylvania, a village at the foot of Frankenstein's castle. You would have made your way through the village. Eventually, the Frau Blucher would have opened the doors and led you in. And be careful, the stairs are treacherous. And it's like, and then from there, you would have arrived at the lab, and that's where you would have seen your show. But here was the problem. When Young Frankenstein was released at theaters in December of 1974, it had been written by Gene Wilder and Mel Brooks. But they had, in the years since, had a falling out. As it was explained to me, it was over what was supposed to be the follow-up to Young Frankenstein. They were going to do another black and white horror film. Difference this time around was, though, it was going to be Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where Gene Wilder was going to play Dr. Henry Jekyll and Mel was going to play Mr. Hyde. And I guess they never got the script in a place where it worked, and that became some sort of bone of contention. And anyway, long story short, Mel was like, no, that would mean I'd have to go to Gene, and I'm not talking to Gene now.
That's a shame.
It is a shame.
Did they eventually reconcile?
Not that I've heard, but maybe somebody could reach out to Max Brooks. By the way, again, you want to talk about weird bends. Mel's son, Max, is the gentleman who wrote the story that the World War Z movie was based on.
Oh, the zombie. Really?
Yes.
Max wrote that.
Max wrote that.
It was a good movie. It was a good zombie movie.
Yeah, well, the whole franchise continues. But anyway, all right, so we can't get the Young Frankenstein thing going forward, a ride or an attraction, that sort of thing. But at this point, Mel gets briefed on the Creature's Choice Awards, and it's sort of like, well, I want to do a Haunted Mansion. I don't want to do a sit-down show like you were talking about for the Young Frankenstein. I want to do a mansion. And so this is where Hotel Mel comes forward. And
Hotel Mel?
So, yeah,
okay.
All right. And so the idea that sort of bubbles up at this point is that you're now in line at there's some sort of event going on at this dilapidated Hollywood hotel. You see these limousines pulling in, but there's really strange things getting out of the limousines. But you get inside the hotel, and this is where the Creature's Choice Awards are being held.
At the hotel.
At the hotel.
That makes sense.
But, that rather than doing it again, the Eddie Murphy, Elvira thing was a sit-down show. This, on the other hand, you would board a vehicle and then travel through the hotel, eventually making your way to the ballroom where the award ceremony was being given. And in fact, the idea was that the award ceremony was going to be sort of this attraction's, you've come out of the attic at the Haunted Mansion and you're now in the graveyard, the elaborate set piece. But as the Imagineers are working with Mel on this, they said, well, we just did something in the Haunted Mansion that maybe you want to do with this attraction. And they talked about that summer where in the endless hallway, they actually put a cast member in a suit of armor.
Oh, right. We've talked about this on a previous show.
Yeah, and the whole notion of, a live person would leap out at them, and the notion is, what if at a couple of points in the ride, you're going past audio animatronic figures and that sort of thing, and suddenly it's a live person. Someone's, reaching out to you and doing a bit in front of you, and it's like, now the guests don't know, all right, is that guy fake? Is that guy live? They developed this idea first for Hotel Mel, and when Hotel Mel got its plug pulled, this is how we got in the Great Movie Ride, the gangster and the cowgirl.
That's where the idea came from.
This is where the idea came from. So
that I didn't know. Look at that.
So
no idea ever dies at Disney.
No, it doesn't. But some concepts don't make it across the finish line. And in this case, what Mel wanted to do was very expensive. And then, much in the case of Eddie Murphy with The Golden Child and Harlem Nights, Mel was coming off of a not-so-great streak at the movies. History of the World Part 1, To Be or Not to Be, and then Spaceballs all underperformed at the box office and got kind of shaky reviews.
Comedy had changed.
It had.
Yeah.
But, the weird thing is, if you look at the producers on Broadway, that sometimes if you wait long enough, conditions change, tastes change.
Yeah.
But what sealed the deal here is the Imagineers began to go by the set of the Nut House, as they were shooting the episodes, and they've got Harvey Korman and Cloris Leachman as the two leads of the show. And it's just one of these things where it's like, it's painfully unfunny. And it's just sort of like, I don't know if this is going to work.
Could you imagine if instead they had gotten Bob Newhart to just play it straight?
But again, just you got to have the right guy in the front seat. Anyway, it's about this time that Michael gives up on the idea of pursuing Mel, and you're getting him to move Brooks Films' production office to Disney lot. And as for the actual Plaza Hotel set, any of you who ever went to the Soundstage restaurant at Disney MGM, that quick service below the Catwalk Bar, that was, in fact, the set of the Plaza Hotel. They shipped it out literally just weeks before Disney MGM opened and suddenly set it up there. And so Michael was finally getting some extra use out of this very expensive set. And then you may remember what Disney did, years to keep that going. That I want to say just 2 years after that restaurant opened, they rethemed it. So suddenly it was the Beast's Palace from Beauty and the Beast. And then the year after that, they turned it into the Cave of Wonders. But the bones were the Plaza Hotel set.
Wow. I don't remember the Beast Castle thing, but I definitely remember Cave of Wonders. So at this point, they need to build Sunset Boulevard. The budget's been cut in half.
Oh, yeah.
And now we have one less idea, right? Because Mel Brooks isn't available. Then what?
It's important to point out here that Michael Eisner loved working with live geniuses. That was kind of the appeal of getting Mel to be on the Disney lot to say, what sort of ideas will Mel come up with? And if we go back to the September of '89, this is honestly why Eisner cut the deal with Jim Henson, to the effect of, to have Jim Henson on the lot, let's see what he come up with. But it had been exhausting dealing with Mel for a couple of years and then to have nothing at the end. And so at this point, Michael decides, I kind of had my fill of dealing with living geniuses, and do we have any dead ones lying around? And
Did you really just say dead geniuses lying around?
Dead geniuses lying around, and which brings us to Rod Serling, the creator of The Twilight Zone, who sadly passed away in June of 1975, which meant that he could not talk back. And he comes into the picture. And next week, our final installment of this series, we will get to how we got from Tower of Terror to the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. And more to the point, we will finally talk about how this became Disney's first reprogrammable theme park ride.
Wow. I learned so much on today's show that I didn't know just about the studios. That's fantastic.
So much at Disney is intertwined. So
that is fantastic. All right, folks, that's going to do it for the Disney Dish show today. Please head on over to disneydish.bandcamp.com, where you'll find exclusive shows never before heard on iTunes, including the earliest known version of Epcot's American Adventure script, which we did with real actors, music, and special effects. On next week's show, Jim wraps up the history of Tower of Terror. You can find more of Jim at jimhillmedia.com and more of me, Len at touringplans.com. We're produced fabulously by Aaron Adams, who'll be cleaning out Grandma Adams' attic, including a complete set of the Broyhill Brasilia line of classic mid-century furniture at the 2021 Conway Modern Vintage Market, running April 9th to the 11th at the Conway Expo Center in beautiful downtown Conway, Arkansas. While Aaron's doing that, please go onto iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Jim, this is Len. We'll see you on the next show.